I've been seeing a lot of revived enthusiasm for pop music recently. I've been seeing a lot of sentiment about, oh, Lady Gaga is back. This is a recession indicator, which means 2008 recession music is so back. We've been having convos about artists, reheating other artists' nachos. And of course, we just came out of such a stacked year for pop music back in 2024. We're in an interesting time for pop, but personally, one of the indicators for me is when we start seeing religious iconography in pop music. Born Again has a lot of religious themes. What's great about Christianity, specifically like Catholicism, is that it has fantastic aesthetics. Music video and lyrics fed into this idea of being born again. She described in the title card as the transformation of a new woman who embraces her freedom to become the person she desires to be. So, of course, in the religious sense, to be born again can also mean, devoting yourself to Christ. Old sins are washed away, you become anew. So, how did they use themes of religion to exemplify themes of self-love and rebirth? I personally love when religion is used in media in general, in books, in movies, and things like that, to examine relationships between characters or between a person and their faith, because you can get really creative, like devotion, worship, fellowship, maybe blind fervor, obsession. I love it. I eat that shit up if it's done really well. So if I can come across that in a book, as infrequent as it is, I'm sad. I'm very much sad. Okay, so we're just going to go through each part by part. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. I love doing videos like this. Okay, so part one starts with Lisa Ray and Doja on a chaise lounge, decked out in all black, in a room that's decorated in white and black. Black, of course, invokes themes of darkness, which contrast not only aesthetically, but like ideologically with the sparse use of white in the room. Our minds immediately think of, okay, good and evil, light and dark, those ideological like opposite contrasts, but also they kind of complement each other. There can be no light without the dark and vice versa, no dark without the light. Make no mistake, while the two colors are at play, our eyes immediately like hone in on the black. That's what's meant to catch our attention. It overpowers the room and our focal points are at their dresses, on their bodies. And I was thinking, okay, perhaps we're grieving a death. Ray and Doja are wearing fascinators and like wide brimmed hats, which is usually a sign of modesty in religion, but it also kind of pulls from Victorian era mourning traditions of wearing veils as an outward expression of one's grief. Lisa particularly is dressed in feathers. They're on her dress, they're on her eyelashes. It's reminiscent of like a raven, and what has been explored in impactful literature. We can kind of think back to like Edgar Allan Poe, who uses ravens as like harbingers of death, or symbols of death and loss. We can also assume with lyrics like, and I just broke up with my man, like, very, very silly man. 1x in the passenger seat because I'm done. You can assume with those kind of lyrics, Lisa is kind of grieving the death of a relationship, and she went through, as she says in the song, a little bit of heartbreak. There definitely is like some sorrow there, but we also get some self-protection. There's lyrics about how she's going to leave the relationship, how she has all the receipts. And I also think about the lyrics like black shades on, and remind me about the funeral-esque attire that they're wearing. Fascinator, wide-brimmed hat with veil, protruding feathers. Even Lisa's first solo shot with like the beaded headdress, it's giving very much like, come close enough, sure, but you may risk poking your eye out. You're not going to get too much, too much access to me. As much as Victorian era like funeral wear was an outward expression of grief, it's very much like a privacy accessory. Perhaps Lisa is conveying in this transformation, the death of the relationship. In this death of the relationship, you don't get access to me anymore. There's a statue just before part two, and it looks perhaps like white marble depicting a nude woman, and her hair is like covering like her extremities. It reminded me of The Birth of Venus by Botticelli, which again, it's in the name. It kind of links back to the idea of being reborn. This is even made more significant as Botticelli's painting was made during the Renaissance, which is a period of time between the 14th and the 17th century, which was a period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth. What's interesting about the Renaissance particularly, which might be kind of, antithetical to, this whole thesis that I'm building, is that it's marked by maybe not necessarily a departation from Christianity, but it's more so like a change in the status quo, like a growing disillusionment and questioning of the Catholic Church. I still think it counts as a rebirth. It's still, a change in the status quo. And I think it still fits back to like this video in terms of, okay, we're changing up what we've been knowing. It's a change in the relationship. It's a new time, a new era, a new woman. essentially. Okay, so now we're getting to part two. Doja's part was so visually exciting. She's wearing like a proper veil, and what's interesting is that it's white. In part one, the girls were wearing all black. There may have been some white decor, but make no mistake, all of them were wearing black. White was never personally like on their clothes. It was never on their person. The white veil is less mournful and more like a return to like modesty. And I think whiteness kind of signifies, like, I kind of played with like colors and what they mean. I would say whiteness signifies like innocence and purity. She's wearing a cross necklace, which is, one of the more overt references to Christianity in the video. She's dancing on sand and surrounded by like empty chairs with this blinding light directly on top of her. I interpreted that as like the light of God, heaven, etc. And this shot, particularly with like the camera at like a lower angle and the light framing like the back of her head, I was so excited by that because not only was it stunning, I thought immediately, okay, holiness, halo, and to a further extent, like Mother Mary. If you know anything about religious iconography, you know that they use halos to like depict and to signify holiness. If you look at like famous paintings of Mary, a lot of them depict her, not only just Mary, but a lot of martyrs, a lot of like religious figures, those who have ascended to divinity. They use halos to depict that like this is a holy person. A lot of them depict her with like a halo or with like some kind of bright light emanating from her. This of course was to signify her closeness to godliness, her sainthood, and her divinity. The next scene showed Doja tied to a pole with a ring of fire around her. First of all, I immediately thought, okay, trial by fire, which is like an antiquated it's an antiquated, they used to just be doing the most like they used to just be doing, they were like, okay, if you pass through this fire and you live, then you're protected by God. Yeah. So it's like an antiquated trial used to test someone's innocence by putting them through some kind of like ordeal, maybe by asking them to walk through fire, things like that. And if they come out unscathed or if they don't die, then like, yeah, God was on their side, they're holy. But if they die, well, the devil must have gotten to them. So once I saw this, I thought, okay, Tale of Two Marys. We're playing for a little bit of juxtaposition with like a Holy Mary, then a Mary tied to a pole. I immediately thought, okay, very Madonna horror complex, which is basically a theory that was put forward by Freud, in which is like straight men either see women as the Madonna or the whore. So, the motherly, nurturing, good, chaste woman and pure woman who they can wife, who they can marry, but not be sexually attracted to. Or women are the sexy, bad, promiscuous, seductive woman that they can't marry or make the mother of their kids. So yeah, we have those two polarities and neither the twain shall meet. We don't know Mary, mother of Jesus. She's also sometimes referred to as Madonna, which I believe is like an Italian word which refers to mother. Mother Mary is perhaps one of like the holiest and most venerated of saints. And then we have Mary Magdalene, one of the women who was with Mother Mary, who was present at Jesus's crucifixion. She went along with their travels. She's actually largely thought about as like one of the other disciples as well, like the 13th disciple. She was also like the first person to realize that Jesus had risen, which is very apt for when I'm recording this right now, because it's very much, this is May, it's like the holy period, like Easter, we just passed Easter, things like that. So why the pole? Why the reference to like sexuality? She, Doja Cat was in skimpier clothing while she was tied to the pole. Why are her hands bound? And what does that have to do with Mary Magdalene? And what does that have to do with Mother Mary? Okay, so from what I've read, Mary Magdalene was considered to be a prostitute, but from what I've researched thoroughly, this is mostly like conjecture. Like canonically in the Bible, there aren't allusions to her being like a prostitute, reformed or otherwise. They said that the depiction comes from the conflation of Mary Magdalene with the other whores that, had been followers of Jesus back in the day. And this was kind of used in an effort to diminish Mary's importance in like Jesus's fellowship. To a further extent, women in leadership roles in the ministry. I wanted to switch up my hand so you guys could see my other rings on my other hand. Pope Gregory the Great in the 6th century had like contributed to horror allegations, and the Catholic Church only in 1969 were like, actually, you guys, breaking our silence. She's not a whore. It's not in the text. It's not supported by text. I'm imagining them doing like a YouTuber style apology, like, guys, breaking our silence. She was not a whore. It was all a lie. I also think the scenes juxtaposed next to each other kind of speak to preaching to an audience that doesn't exist, preaching to an audience that have made up their minds essentially about you, that don't want to listen. It's almost like a trial, like I said earlier. It's very damned if you do, damned if you don't. Those trials by fire, they kind of evoke that sense of having to prove your innocence. And like I said, you can't, because they are putting you through physical ordeals that anyone, guilty or innocent, will possibly die from. Like, I think at that point it's up to your genetics, it's up to your white blood cells to see how they can help you. If you're being put through like a trial by fire, it really comes down to like your physical, the way you can physically bounce back. It doesn't really have anything to say about your innocence. It doesn't have anything to say about your morality, at least from my own think. But yeah, so it's very damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think it also kind of speaks to maybe having to play a role that you don't want to, or maybe being confined to a box in a relationship that you perhaps don't want to. Again, kind of speaking back to like the Madonna horror complex. I also think the way Doja's flow switched up and the way her lyrics changed. I think in the Holy Mary segment, she's on trial, she's pleading her case, she's like begging. And then once she switches to Mary Magdalene, it's like she's been found guilty. She's turned the accusations back on her accusers. And I also think it kind of speaks to the way women are treated in religion. Okay, so part 3. I mean, there's not much to say in this segment except, Garden of Eden, Eve bit the apple, widely considered perhaps like the first sin in the Bible, the first sin ever. It also ties back to Doja's parts where she said the lyric, "You've bitten from the apple but can't give back." We've also got Lisa with her white hair, somewhat similar to Doja's white veil. Again, with the interplay of light and dark, Madonna and horror, sin and innocence. Is it crazy to say the crown is also kind of giving crown of thorns? I don't know. Is that too much? Part 4. Ray is in this pool of water surrounded by white flowers in this white dress. First off, her face is insane. Like, all of them look absolutely gorgeous, but this segment pays a particular attention to her face. And I kind of assumed it was because like the props around her, the flowers around her are very like homogenous. It's just like a sea of white. I assumed they gave her more close-ups to kind of break up the monotony so that she wouldn't get lost in the scenes. Anyway, aside from that, I think water, a pool in this context, can be safely analyzed as like a baptism, which is committing yourself to Christ, washing away old sins, becoming anew in the eyes of the Lord. In that vein, I connected that to communion. Just because she was wearing white, it was a pool of white. You wear white at your communion, but also communion, taking in bread and blood of Christ. Ray says in a lyric, "Wake me and take me like a vitamin." Vitamins are good for your body. The body and blood of Christ, the bread and the wine that you take, are good for your soul, therefore the edification of your soul. I also think white flowers wouldn't be amiss at a funeral, so there's that death link. But I also think when it comes to like the flora in this video, the trees and the apple from part 3, flowers here in part 4. I would say in general, this video is like quite a harsh looking video. The flora kind of provides the necessary softness to kind of break up the harshness in the video. I also think there's this idea of like the things of the earth. They die, they create more life. So dust to dust, ashes to ashes. Adam was made from the dust of the earth. So earth gives life, and in death, life returns to death. Someone dies, and then, the corpse breaks down, and then the ground uses it for nutrients to like feed the flowers and the things around it. So there's those, similar cyclical themes of rebirth. Okay, so part 5. All the girls are in white, fully pure, fully innocent, sins washed away. They're wearing silver too, which I thought, interpreted as like armor, as maybe the armor of God perhaps. But also, at a very base level analysis, I think it symbolizes coming out of a relationship. If we're talking about clothes in part 1 and how it was very much like funeral attire garb, don't come close to me, privacy accessory. Okay, so I think there's some obvious differences between then and now, where we had, black, hard, dark, unapproachable clothing and accessories. We now have materials that have kind of flow on their skin like water. It looks soft, except for like the smattering of silver armor, which does kind of meld well to the color palette that they're using anyway. And I think this might mean that they're stronger actually now and healed, as opposed to that superficial bravado one might put on right, at the end of a relationship, right at the beginning of the end of a relationship, when it just happened, when it's just fresh in your mind, where it's like, yeah, I'm so much better off. Yeah, fuck them. Like, yeah, but like now it's like, actually, no, some time has passed. I've taken time to be with myself, and now I'm actually healed. I'm very much better. So I think it's like superficial strength as opposed to like actual innate strength. So yeah, I hope I've been able to prove, how the title and the video in general is very much two pronged. Like, yes, the angle is initially you believe, born again is the woman shedding her old self to transform into a new woman, like a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis, or a snake shedding its skin, which can lead back to like Eve and, the snake and whatever, the Garden of Eden. But as I've explained in this video, other than the born again in a new woman sense, we get born again in sense of we're born again in Christianity, born again in religion. I also think the interplay of sex and religion kind of emphasized the idea of a renaissance. The birth of Venus, for example, is touted as like one of the most important non-religious secular pieces of art, as people realize that arts could be for pleasure and not just for religion. To be reborn, you kind of have to die, but not only, in that religious sense, but like a self development sense. You have to shed old habits and old ways. And I also think born again also refers to like the paramour who did Our Lady's wrong in this song. He could have been born again too, walked the path to the light, but he refused to be saved. I think there's this sense of like ministry, spreading the good word. You could have been with me. You could have been with me, okay? But you know what? I think also just in this sense, like I was thinking like, gosh, is this so bad? Like, because it's quite vague. The song and lyrics are quite vague about what the guy did or why they're breaking up. And because it's so vague, I kind of have to give I kind of have to give like the loosest interpretation, because she's like, if you tried just a little bit more, I could have made you a believer, could have showed you what it's like. And I can't really glean meaning from that. So I kind of have to take it as, if you had tried more in the relationship, we could have gone all the way. And I was like, okay, but like, what reassurances does the guy have to know that, to get to the good parts? And I was like, you know what? It's faith. It's faith. It's having faith. It's having faith. And as cringy as it sounds from Fallout Boy, sometimes the only payoff for having any faith is when it's tested again and again every day. But yeah, okay, so now we're just going to do a little bit like rapid fire right now. So light and dark are constantly at play, not just with lighting, but also with the color use and with the story parallels, Madonna and Whore, Born Again but Sinful. There's also a level of persecution here, like I talked about earlier. The girls, namely Doja, are facing scrutiny by an audience that we can't see. They are trying to convince them of their innocence to maybe no avail. And I couldn't link it before, but I remember Jesus literally faced religious persecution. Like later, while I was drafting this video, I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus, like, like, yeah, he was on the cross, literally faced religious persecution himself and was literally hung on a cross for it. Lisa, in the first shot, the literal first shot of the video, stumped me, because I was like, what is this? Like, I was trying to like get something. The only thing that I have, and you can like tell me what you think about it, is that it kind of eerily reminded me of Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette, which is a gorgeous movie, by the way. It reminded me of the end, at the end, the balcony scene where she submits herself to like the angry crowd. And I guess you could say she was persecuted. She was. The religion link also possibly being like the divine right of kings, which is flimsy, but it really is all I could think about. I'm in no way trying to like conflate or trying to like link together the greed and the avarice and like the selfishness of like the monarchy, especially that kind of like monarchy back then. I'm not trying to like link that to like the inherent good that you're meant to see in like Christianity and in religion, and like selflessness, giving yourself for others, community, yada yada yada. I'm not trying to conflate the two, but I do think, there's that divine right of kings in which it's like, okay, the monarch who's on seats, yeah, they were chosen by God. They are the right hand by God. They are like God's representative on earth. That's what like divine right of kings kind of means. Flimsy, but it's all I could think about. Okay, so rapid fire. A lot of circles, circle arrangement of chairs, circular ring of fire, circle medal, clock, pulley. Definitely could tie into the idea of eternity, the afterlife, rebirth, that kind of vibe. The training area just reminded me a little bit of like what I said earlier about trying again and again, trying to get good at something, getting past the bad parts to get to the good parts. But also, crown a la royalty, a la divine right of kings, rock with 3 points. I kind of link this to like, okay, 3 points, 3 people. These were good features. Ray and Doja, their catalog kind of lends itself to empowerment, kind of like Doja's woman Doja's woman, but also like the catalog can also span from female empowerment to like, oh wow, what a bomb. Like Ain't Shit by Doja, but also I'm also thinking about Ray's, because she has this lyric where that she says here, "What a silly, silly man," which was in Flip a Switch. If you know, you know. So Ray definitely has that, like her catalog can lend itself to like, what a bomb, like wow, like you know what I mean. So yeah, I think there were good features in that regard, but I also think the idea of the three of them kind of lends itself for three for Holy Trinity, three for Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I would go Lisa for Father because it's her song, but also God was present in the Garden of Eden. So we can put that there. And Lisa kind of put herself in that position as well. So yeah, so I would say Lisa for Father, the Son for Doja, I would say, just because Jesus was the one who was on the cross, he was the one who was crucified. And then I would say Ray for Holy Spirit. Her side was, very much like, I don't know how to explain it, but it wasn't as, it was more interpretive in that sense. It was more metaphorical. Yeah. Ray for Holy Spirit, especially because you're being born again. It's a baptism. Is there a reach to say, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so that's basically it. I love when religion interplays with other different media. Funny enough, we just got a new pope. I honestly, this is perfect timing. We literally just got a new pope, and I actually, before we got a new pope, I watched Conclave. Guys, it was so beautiful. I love a good shot. It was so fun. I love good acting. But yeah, so I love when we get religion themes and songs. I think it's also a recession indicator for sure. One of my favorites. Okay, I love Lady Gaga. Whenever she uses religious themes, it's such a fun time. I love how I can just say Lady Gaga and like you're probably I don't have to name one song. There are a couple. I also love Bruno Mars's Locked Out of Heaven. So yeah, that was that video. I had fun. I had fun. Guys, if I tell you what the time is, it's actually 7. It's actually 7. Yeah, it's actually 7. It's 7 a.m. right now, but I thought if I don't do it now, I will never do it. So yeah, so that was this video. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. I really enjoyed it. If you know when I made this I actually made this I've made the script since the time they brought out this song, guys. Months ago. Months ago. Can you see me? See me? Months ago, was it? It's May. They brought out the song back in like March or something like that. Like I'm very late to the party. I'm very, but you know what? Perhaps I'm just on time because as I was working on this script and I've actually filmed this video before, it was actually like it was very much like, oh, we're approaching Easter, so you know what? You never know what the universe has in store for you in terms of timing. So and the Pope, we just got a new Pope, so perhaps that adds another like meta layer to my scripts right now. So yeah. Anyway, had so much fun. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. I love videos like this. I love scripts like these. It's just fun. I just like to like intuit too much meaning. I like to intuit too much meaning in things that perhaps, probably wasn't that deep, but like everything's deep. So yeah, thank you. Bye. Oh, and today's Sunday. Can you imagine? On the holy day. On the holy day. All right. Bye.